Every film has one thing in common: characters. Every film, or story for that matter, has at least one, and they come in all different shapes, sizes, backgrounds, and personalities. A character, more specifically the protagonist, is the person or figure in a story that we as an audience are all meant to follow. This is the character that we have to stick with because they are the focal point of the journey that we are about to find ourselves in. Now, the way a protagonist is presented in film and TV varies based on the kind of story that's being told. But in my opinion, interesting characters are an essential aspect to having a successful film. When I go to see a movie, the first thing I ask myself is, why do I care? It's a question that all audiences subconsciously ask themselves. After all, there must be a reason for them to be there. I mean, why did I pay $12 for a movie ticket? What does this mean to me? And when writing a screenplay, it's a question that you too have to ask yourself. Why do I care? Why are these characters so important? Why should I care about any of these people? Why should I care about anything that's going on here at all? This is all fictional. None of this is real. How does this affect my life? Well, today we will be examining the importance of good characters in filmmaking. Now, to understand why characters are so important in filmmaking, we have to understand what makes that character a good character. And I don't mean good in the sense that they fight for justice or defeat the bad guy, but good in the sense that they have a motivation or goal that we can get behind, regardless of whether or not they are seen as the hero or sometimes even the villain of the story. Some of the things needed in order to form a character that the audience will root for are the motivations, the personality, and the overall relatability. Now, films and TV tell a variety of different stories, each with their own set reality and understanding of that reality. So don't think that you need to stick to one specific archetype. A story could be about anything. It could be about a clownfish trying to find his recently kidnapped son, or even be a story about a chemistry teacher who secretly runs a criminal empire. But one of the hardest things to do in filmmaking is making a character universally relatable. This is because more often than not, movies present us with a story that's larger than life and set in a fictional setting with special circumstances. Take, for example, the film E.T. the Extraterrestrial, a film about a young boy named Elliot who befriends an alien and tries to get him back home. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that nobody in real life has ever actually been able to relate to that concept, at least not the concept alone. It's the message and implications of that story, however, that people fell in love with, especially the ones that surround the film's protagonist, Elliot. Elliot is a character who struggles a lot in life. He's picked on by his brother, his father's absent from his life, his mother's always working, and he doesn't really have very many friends, or any friends at all for that matter. He lives a rather lonely existence, especially for someone who's only 10 years old. And because of this, he longs for something greater, a friend, which he finds in the form of an alien named E.T. What makes Elliot such a relatable character is the fact that he has problems that are grounded in reality. Everyone at some point in their life has felt alone. It's not a good feeling, but it's one that allows us to be sympathetic towards Elliot. He's just a little kid, and there's nothing in the film that tells us that he deserves the hand that life has dealt him. At its core, it's a story about friendship and the wonders of being a kid, concepts that everyone understands. This is a bit tricky. I mean, what does it mean to have a likable personality? Well, to understand that, we need to take a look at the world-famous character known as Spider-Man. Spider-Man is hailed as one of, if not the greatest superheroes of all time. His movies are entertaining, his powers are interesting, but the thing about Spider-Man that people resonate with the most is his personality. Before getting bit by a radioactive spider, Peter Parker was your average high school nerd. After getting bit by a radioactive spider, he became an arrogant high school nerd, one who sought to only use his newfound powers to look after himself. But all that changed after the murder of his Uncle Ben, a murder that Peter later finds out he most definitely could have prevented, had he not solely focused on his own self-interests. After this, Peter renounced his selfish ways and started on his righteous journey to become the true essence of what people know him as today.
This is my gift, my curse. Who am I? I'm Spider-Man.
What makes Spider-Man's personality so beloved is the fact that he's just like everyone else, even though his accomplishments will tell you otherwise. I mean, how many people do you know that have saved the world several times, traveled to different dimensions, and even met alternate versions of themselves, can climb walls and lift things that weigh thousands of tons? You probably don't know anyone who can do any of that. And you would think that someone who could do such things would have to be some kind of a god, or a prophet, or the chosen one of some long-lost prophecy. But the character we're talking about is none of those things. He's just a teenager from New York, with a strong heart and the will to keep fighting no matter the cost. The reason that Spider-Man is such a popular character is because, in spite of everything he's been through, he remains as a normal guy. He is the everyman. Sure, he's saved the universe a number of times, but in reality, he's not much different from the people who sit down and watch his movies. He's not that different from you or me. Even so, he is the guy that everyone looks to as a symbol of hope and determination. We know that Peter won't abuse the gifts that he has, but will instead use them in the service of others. To many, Spider-Man is proof that hard work, persistence, and even some humor will get you through any situation. All this and much more lets us know that wherever there's a hang-up, you'll find the Spider-Man. These are the perfect qualities needed in order to make a character with a good personality. But even with a good personality and relatability, that's still not enough to complete your character. Sure, those things help, but arguably the most important question when making any kind of character is, what is the character's place in the story? What motivates them to be right here, right now? You can have the most charming, the funniest, the coolest, most interesting character to have ever been written. But if that character serves zero purpose in the story, your audience will notice it, and your film will suffer for it. If this character doesn't have a place in the film, they probably shouldn't be there, unless you can find a justifiable reason for them to be there. What makes the reason justifiable is that it must make sense within the world you've created, and must be so that the story can't progress without them. Let's look at 3 films that at first glance seemingly have nothing in common. Terminator 2: Judgment Day, The Wizard of Oz, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. While it may not seem like it, these films have one very important thing in common. They all tell stories that are a race against time. The Terminator has to find John Connor before an even stronger Terminator, the T-1000, gets to him first, because the future of mankind depends on John Connor's survival. Dorothy and her new friends have to reach the great and powerful Wizard of Oz in the Emerald City before the Wicked Witch of the West manages to catch up with them and kill Dorothy to get the ruby slippers. Indiana Jones has to find the Ark of the Covenant before the Nazis do, because they are the worst possible choice of people to have access to that kind of power. All these characters have a place in the story. The story can't happen without them. Without the T-800, John Connor dies. Without Dorothy, we don't learn that there's no place like home. And without Indiana Jones, the Nazis find the Ark of the Covenant. All these characters have to accomplish a certain goal before the antagonist finds a way to defeat them. And we agree with these motivations because we already have these established characters and know what will happen if they fail in their quests. Added to the understandable motivations of these characters, they are all also interesting people outside of their purpose in the story, which helps us root for them even more. The Terminator is a machine who can learn to be more human. This helps him develop an emotional connection with John Connor, forming a father-son bond and resulting in us developing an even more emotional connection with him. We want Dorothy to succeed because she's a kind and sweet girl who's a victim of circumstances entirely beyond her control. And she doesn't ask for much, she just wants to be back home with her family. We want Indiana Jones to succeed because when it's all said and done, he is a man of integrity, one who respects archaeological artifacts and the history behind them. And unlike the Nazis, we know he won't try to use the Ark for world domination. All these characters have goals and motivations, ones that we understand, and we want to watch them succeed at. After all, that is part of what makes a character so memorable. So there you have it. Writing a character that audiences will love is not easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest parts about writing in general. Characters can make or break your film, so it's important that you utilize what's been talked about here today in your own work. But the characters aren't the only thing that make a film successful. There's infinite other factors and aspects. The knowledge of filmmaking is ever changing, but we'll be sure to cover some more next time.